Hey guys, welcome to Monday Move where we enhance our asana. This week we are going over Bhujangasana or Cobra Pose, a beautiful belly back bend. So let's get on our mats and get started. So a few misalignments to mention is how we place our hands on our mats, where our shoulders are in space, and where our foundation is, our main points of foundation. So, or main points of connection to our mats. So starting with the wrists. I mentioned this a few weeks ago when we went over down dog, but when we are weight bearing on our hands, we don't want all the weights coming into this little itty bitty wrist joint. That's going to give you wrist pain. So think of wide fingers and think of using the full circumference of your hands instead of just weight bearing on your wrist. So what that means is using your root knuckles as the foundation. So shifting your weight forward onto your hand, gripping the mat with your finger pads so not all of your weight is in the wrist. That'll help save your wrists in the long run. Where your shoulders are in space. We are so accustomed to sitting in front of a computer, so our shoulders are always rounded forward. And then Cobra pose, we use our upper body strength. So sometimes when we're a little weaker, we try and squeeze our shoulders to really make this pose happen. So we end up looking like this. When we lift the chest, we're really using our arms. We're not used to taking our shoulders back in space, so their Cobra pose looks like this. And that's that placement of the upper arm and the shoulder joint is not completely locked into the joint. So that's where injury can occur in the shoulder because you're not bringing that arm bone properly into its socket for strong action there. Lastly, the main anchor point for belly back bends is your pubic bone, your pelvis. So when you are on your belly, really, instead of just being loosey-goosey with the booty, where it can be sticking up into the air, really pressing your pubic bone down into the mat. So if you're doing it properly, your glutes will be firing. You want to think of taking your glute muscles down towards your heels. Okay? So those are the three misalignments that I really want you to think about while we come into Cobra pose. So let's come into Cobra pose. So on our bellies, again, first things first, just root that pubic bone initially. As soon as you're ever on your belly, push that pubic bone into the earth. Another cue I like to use when we are in belly back bends is imagine the movement initially is just going forward. So as if somebody was holding your head and they were trying to pull your head away from you. So the action of going forward. And then think about the action is going up. And then lastly, the action is pulling your shoulders back and looking forward. So it's out, up, then back. Okay? And again, that too will help any discomfort in the lower back. So hand placement is going to be just like underneath the shoulders, maybe a slightly back, and then more so not exactly onto your rib cage, but slightly away from your ribs. Elbows are slightly hugged into the rib cage. Again, you don't need to squeeze your elbows into your ribs, but I just don't want them winging out to the side. Pubic bone is rooted. My root knuckles are pressing into the mat, and I'm grabbing the mat with my fingertips. As I inhale, I'm going to press into my hands. I'm thinking out, up, then back. And I'm not forcing my arms straight because in Cobra pose, I want my pubic bone always on the ground. So the elbows remain bent. You'll get a better upper body workout here. And now that I'm up, I'm dragging my hands isometrically back in towards my body to really engage through my upper back. And then you release. If Cobra pose is too much for your upper body, a great modification is coming into Sphinx pose. So very similar, except that will be on our forearms instead of our hands. Our elbows will be slightly forward of our shoulders. Our palms are face down, and again, our pubic bone is rooted. Tops of the shoulders are pulled back. So if you watch here for a moment, you'll see how much alike, how similar these two poses are. If I keep my chest lifted, I slide one hand back, then the other. I'm right in cobra pose. Now I can lift a little bit higher here if I wanted to, but in all honesty, they're the same pose, just different hand placement. Okay, so one more time for cobra. Pubic bone into the ground, hands slightly behind the shoulders, elbows gently hugged in. Lift the front of your arm bones up away from the floor. Inhale, press into your hands, think out, up, back. And then once you're up, pull your hands back in towards the body to really engage through the back body. And breathe. One more inhale. Exhale to lower down. We can press to all fours. And that's cobra pose or Bhujangasana. As always, if you have any questions, comments, inquiries, feel free to reach out to me via Facebook Messenger. You can go to my website, katieschleekwellness.com. Email, text. I have many different ways that you can get a hold of me. So play with Bhujangasana. Let me know how it goes and how much you like it or dislike it and why. And I look forward to seeing you next week. So have a great rest of your day. A wonderful week. Namaste.